Hello and welcome to another exciting one. I'm my friend and today we are doing this cute 3D emoji right inside of Blender. So let's go. Alright, so I have my Blender opened. If you don't have a copy, you can quickly jump into the website and grab yourself a copy. It's completely free. So next I'll go into my general and we are going to be greeted with our default beloved cube, our light, and then a camera. So I'll drag to select my cube and my light, and we'll do X for delete. We are not going to need them. Next we are going to add our round shape, so we'll do Shift A, then we go to mesh and let's look for round cube here. Okay, so if you don't have this round cube here, if you can see it here, you will have to enable it inside your add-ons. So you go to preference and you search for extra, so add mesh extra objects. Is going to give you extra cool primitives to play around with. So next let's do Shift A and then let's select our round cube. Let's pop up these settings here and then let's change the operator preset to quad sphere so that we get a round cube like this. Let's hit on the x-axis to go into our right orthographic view and let's create our mouth. To do that, make sure our cube is selected and let's jump into edit mode. I'm going to select, let's make sure our face select mode is active. So we are going to select this entire geometry here. So I'll hold Control, click, and then with my hand still on Control, I'll click here, click, and then click, so that all these parts are selected. Next let's do X and let's delete the faces. So we have a hole inside like this. Let's jump out of edit mode by hitting tab and then let's add two modifiers to our head. The first one will be a solidify modifier. Let's increase the thickness a bit, so we can, I am holding shift to increase it in small increments like this. So I'll do something like this, and then next let's add a subdivision surface to smoothen out the surface. So let's increase our level viewport to something like 3, and let's right click and shade smooth so that we have a smooth head of our emoji here. Next let's add a tank, so we do Shift A and let's add a cube. Let's hit S and drag to make our cube smaller like this. Let's do G, Z, and bring it up like this, out like this. Let's do S, Z once again, right, and then we can do S for scale, and then we are scaling it on the Y axis so that it's a bit longer. Let's hit G and let's bring it on the X axis so that it's sticking out a little bit like this. Okay, so we can do S once again, and then let's scale it on the Y axis to something like this. Okay, next let's jump into edit mode and let's hit slash to isolate our tank like this. Let's right click and let's subdivide. Let's increase the number of cards to 2 so that we have something like this to play around with. Next let's add a modifier, so we're adding a subdivision surface modifier so that we can see what's going on with our tank. So we have this. Okay, so let's take the tank out a little bit. So to do that, I'm going to select this face right here and make sure I have proportional editing turned on. This will allow me to edit a bunch of faces together, so it will give it a nice fallout when I try to take this out. So I'll hit G. You can see this is the radius, so the higher the radius, everything that falls within the radius are going to be affected. So I'm going to scroll my mouse wheel up to decrease the radius a bit. Now hit Z and I'll be able to move it in the Z axis like this. So we have a nice fall off like this. So next I'll select this, I'll do G and then Z once again, and I'll bring it up like this. And let's select G and then Z, and let's bring it in like this. So we are shaping our tongue so that it looks more natural and realistic a bit. Well, let's select this one, we do G and we hit Y, and then we bring it in a bit. So you can play around to find what works best for you. When you're done, I'll hit tab to jump out of edit mode, right click and then shades mode. So we can add another subdivision to make it more smoother like this. So we hit our slash to bring back our head. So this is what we have so far. We can do S and then scale it in a bit. We do G, Z, and let's place it. Let's make sure it's not sticking through, it's not clipping through our head. So something like this. We can do S and then Y and G, bring it up like this. So S, let me do SZ. So we have something like this. So we have our head and then our tongue. Next, let's create our teeth inside. So to create our teeth, we do Shift A once again, and then we will select our round cube once again. We do X to scale it inside like this, so that we have something like this. We jump into our right orthographic view, and then we can do S to scale it inside a bit more. Okay, so next we are going to select all these faces and then delete them, so that I will be left with this top part here. So I'll hit slash and then I'll jump into edit mode. So I'll hit slash once again so that I seal. So I'll select this so that I'll know, okay, this is the row we are deleting. So I'll hit slash once again, and then I'll hit control click so that I'll select this entire row of faces. I'll select this, and then with my hand is still on control, and then I'll select this as well. Okay, so next we do X and then we delete the faces. So we can select all these faces, let's do X and then let's delete our faces. Okay, so let's hit slash to bring up our head once again. So this is what we have here. Okay, so to see things a bit clearly, we can hit here, and then let's change our color to random so that each object inside our viewport will be given a different color. So this is the color of our tongue, this is the head. So you see we have the tongue is a bit here. So let's do this and let's jump into edit mode once again. Let's make sure our point select mode is active. Let's select this point, do G, make sure we have our proportional editing turned off. Select this point, do G, and let's bring it up like this. And let's select this once again, do G, and let's bring it up like this so that it's not sticking down awkwardly. So jump out of edit mode, and this is what we have. So next we can go to our object mode. We can do R and Y and rotate it on the Y axis a bit so that our teeth is not sticking inside our tongue. RY. So we have something like this, and we can give it more detail by adding a little bit of cut here. So to do that, let's go into our edge select mode and let's select this edge, right click, and let's subdivide. Okay, and let's increase the number of cuts to 2. So we have something like this. Let's jump into our object mode once again, and let's select this, go into our right orthographic view, hold click G and then Z. Let's bring it up like this so that you have a bit of a stylish teeth to say. So now we go into our object mode and let's add two modifiers. So our solidify modifier, let's increase the thickness a bit, and then let's add the subdivision surface modifier, and let's increase the levels to 2. Right click and then let's shade smooth. Next, we are going to add our love eyes. Love eyes. Obviously, this emoji is falling in love. So to do that, we do Shift A. Then we are going to use cube to create our heart. So we select cube right here. We hit slash to isolate our cube for a minute, and then let's jump into edit mode. Okay, so how we are going to create the heart is we are going to extrude. Let me have my face select mode. Extrude this face here, and then extrude this other face here. Okay, and then we bevel the edges around to create our heart form. So to do that, let's come to this extrude region and make sure our extrude individual is selected and active. So and then let's select this face, hold shift and select this face right here, and then let's hold our mouse here, and then let's extrude it out like this. So we have two separate faces extruded out. Next, let's select our edge select mode. And then let's select these edges. This hold shift, select, hold shift, click, and then click. So we have these 1, 2, 3, 4 edges selected. Let's do Control B for bevel, and then let's scroll our mouse wheel to add more cuts to it. So let's bevel it to somewhere here. Okay, and next let's just delete this one edge like this. So let's make sure either of these is fine. So let's make sure we have this edge selected. We hit X, and then let's do dissolve edge. Let's do the same for this X, dissolve edge. So we have this. So we have our heart form created. Let's just adjust things a little bit. So I'll toggle my X-ray mode. Now hit this. Now drag to make sure all these stock parts are selected. And let's do G, and let's bring it down to right about somewhere here. I'll do the same for this side. Let's do G, but I'll bring it in the Y axis to somewhere here. So we have this going on. I'll turn off the X-ray mode, and next let's select all these edges. So all these edges, and then let's bevel them once again. So I'll select the first one, hold shift alt, select this one, hold shift alt, click here, and then I'll hold shift to select this one. I'll rotate my objects around, hold shift click, and then shift with alt click to select this, and then shift with alt click to select this one as well. Okay, next let's do Control B once again, and let's bevel the edges a bit more. So we have something like this. Okay, so you can increase the width. You can increase the width here. You can increase the segments if you want. Okay, so I think this works fine for me. So next, let's tap out of edit mode, right click and apply sheet smooth, and let's add subdivision modifier. Let's increase the level of subdivision to something high, to something like 5 or 6. So we have our hearts selected, we have our heart created. So next, let's rotate it on the X axis. Let's select our hearts, we hit R for rotate X, and then do -45 to rotate it on the X axis like this. Next, we hit our slash to bring up all our objects, and then obviously let's scale our heart down somewhere here. Let's do G, X, and let's bring it up like this. So let's scale it up a bit, and let's scale it S, G. So let's scale it down on the Z axis to somewhere here. So our heart is ready. So let's place it in the right position. So to do that, let me turn on my Gizmo move and rotate for a bit. Let's move. Okay. So let's make sure it's touching, but obviously not clipping too much. rotate, make sure everything is placed in place as you like, so you can take more time to fine-tune it to your liking. I'll do Shift D to duplicate, and now another duplicate here, and do the same thing, rotate. So we have our emoji done and ready. Next, we are going to add some materials and render our final image. So let's quickly select everything, hold Shift and click on the head, and then let's do Control P to parent everything to the head. So now if we move the head, everything will move along with it. All right, so now let's drag another workspace here, and this is going to be for our camera. Let me quickly hide my gizmo, and let's drag this here. So this will be for our shader editor tab. So let's change it to shader editor, and let me select, let me do GZ to bring it up like this. Let's add our backdrop. So we add a plane, hold, select Shift, and then let's scale it in. Let's jump into edit mode with our plane. Let's select this back edge here. Then let's do EZ to extrude it in the Z axis. Let's select this edge here, and then let's do Control B to bevel, so that we have our smooth, seamless backdrop here. Next, let me turn on my camera. So this will be our camera view. So let's hit so that we can see our camera like this. I'm scrolling the mouse to zoom in. So let me hit N to bring up this menu, and let's go to view, and then let's lock camera to view. So now we'll be able to move our camera into view like this. So let me click these two things to hide everything so that we can see our render clearly here. Let's jump into our render properties, and let's change our render engine from Eevee to cycles, and let's hit this so that it's being rendered in cycles. So this is the viewport render here. Let me jump out of object mode, right click, and let's shade smoke so that we have our backdrop smoothly shaded. So let's add our materials, but before we do that, let's quickly add in an HDRI, right? So we change this, so make sure you are in your shader editor. We change from object to world. So this is the background, this is the world background. So let's do Control T, and it's going to bring up this node tree here. If yours doesn't happen, you go to edit, preference, and then search for node wrangler here, and make sure it's selected, and you'll be able to do the same command. Next, let's hit open to add an HDRI. Okay, I already have an HDRI downloaded. You can grab one from HDRI Haven. I'm going to link a link in the description if you want to follow along. So I'll select open image, and then my HDRI will be added. So it's an image, and it's going to add lighting to our scene here. Let's change from world to object view, and let's select our head here, and let's click new to add a new material. So I'm going to give it a very yellowish color. You can copy my hex code if you want to follow along exactly. And then next, let's increase the roughness to 0.2 so that we have a very rough surface like that. Next, let's select our backdrop, hit new to add a new material. Let's change the base color to more yellow, just like this. And I think our material is fine. We're just changing the base color. Next, let's add the colors to the hearts. Obviously hearts are red, so I'll select one heart, I'll hit, I'll add the new material, then I'll make it red. Let's change the roughness to 0.2. Okay, so to apply our this material to the rest of the materials, we are going to link them. So to do that, we hold shift, select, and then hold shift and click on the last one to make it active. We do Ctrl L to bring link materials. So we are going to hit link materials data. So we have all these 3 materials are now linked. So every changes I make to the first one will be applied to the rest of them. Okay, so we have our lighting, our materials, and everything set up. Next thing to do is let's add a bit of area light to the scene to make it more interesting. So to do that, let's decrease the strength of our HDRI to, let's say, 0.2, something like this. And then let's add a new light. So we do Shift A and go to light and add an area light. So the light is added here. Let's do G and then Z to bring it up like this. Let's do X to scale it like this, and we can go to our light properties and let's increase the power to 100. So we have some light going on here for us. Let's increase our light a bit. G. Next, let's do Shift D and let's add a duplicate. Let's point it to somewhere here, and we can obviously play around. You can change the shape from sphere to a rectangle, or maybe a disc if you want a smoother. Let's increase the size a bit. Yeah, so we have our light. Let's add another light here. So let's do Shift D once again. Let's bring our light and let's bring it here. And so we have a basic 3-point setup, so that we have a very nice and reflective surface like this. So I'm just try to position the lights in the scene. So you can take a lot of time to play around and find what works best for you. Okay, so next, at this point we're obviously done. Just adding a little bit of stuff to make the whole composition a lot more interesting. So next, let's select around cube here. So it contains all the elements, the eye, the thumb, the teeth, and everything. Forgot. Let's quickly add a material to our teeth. So I'll select it, objects, and let's change the color to white, and let's increase the roughness to 0.2. Okay, so let's make sure we select everything. So we have all of these selected. I'll do Shift D to give it a duplicate. I'm going to bring it somewhere here, and S to scale it down. Double tap R to rotate. So we have something like this. Let's do Shift D once again to bring a duplicate. Let's do G and let's move it inside a bit. Double tap R and then let's rotate it so that we have a little bit of interesting stuff going on in our scene like that. So after we are done, we are going to render our scene. So let's go to our render properties. Make sure the render engine is set to cycles and the device is set to GPU compute, obviously. And you can increase your max sample here. Make sure you have your denoise tick. And let's go to color management and let's change the look to high contrast to give it a little bit of pop like this. And after you are done, you can head over to render image, and we have our final image rendered. All right guys, so this is my final render. To save this image, we're going to go to image, save as, locate where you want to save it, change the file format to maybe JPEG or PNG, and hit save. Thank you very much for watching. If you like this video, please don't forget to like and subscribe. See you on the next one.